Hi pumpkins! This time Georgie and I are going to read to you When the Wind Changed, written by Ruth Park and illustrated by Deborah Nyland. This book is hilarious. Well, I think so. Georgie does too. We hope you love it. There was this boy named Josh. He could do lots of things. There was one thing he could do best of all. He could make faces. He found out how good he was at making faces because of the dog next door. This dog did not like cats, seagulls, or big or little people. Most of all, he did not like Josh. He always hoped that Josh would come over the fence so that he could bite him, George. Oh, mean dog. One day, Josh's ball flew over the fence. Josh climbed up to see if he could get it. There it lay in the middle of the dog's garden. The dog made a terrible noise. Good dog, said Josh. Want a nice bone, doggy? The dog made another terrible noise, which Josh very well understood. The bone the dog wanted was Josh's leg bone. Josh made a funny face at him. It was just an ordinary awful face, but the dog's tail dropped. His ears went flat and he ran onto his porch. He growled as Josh climbed over the fence, but as Josh was still making the face, he dared not come closer. Isn't it revolting? When Josh got back to his own place with the ball, he went inside. There was his grandmother reading the newspaper. Look, Gran, said Josh, I can make a face that scares dogs. Grandmother looked up, gave a screech, ah, and battered Josh over the head with the newspaper. Oh, Josh was surprised and pleased. He went to the mirror to have a look at his dog and Gran scaring face. Did not seem very special. I could do better than that, he thought. Every day he practiced. He discovered more and more awful faces. He tried them on the postman. That is hideous. He then tried them on his mother. His mother was not a screecher, but she did ask him to not try his faces on the people in the street because it would not be good for Dad's business. Dad was a teller at the bank down the street. He was an important person and always wore very white shirts. Dad was a hard person to upset. When Josh tried the most awful of his faces on him, all he did was to look thoughtfully at Josh and say, I don't know if you've heard, Josh, but if you're making a face and the wind changes, it will stay that way. Ha ha, said Josh. But that didn't upset his father. Josh went on practicing faces. Then one day he made the best face of all. It was hideous. It almost scared Josh himself. Suddenly, the wind changed. His face stayed the way it was. Josh tried to squash it back into shape. He heaved up under his chin. He pressed on top of his head. He squeezed and pummeled his cheeks. It was no use. Josh went out and climbed the fence. The dog next door saw him. It fell down and went on like a howling jelly. Josh could see that if his face never changed, life could be very awkward. He decided to go and ask Dad what to do. After all, Dad had known what would happen when the wind changed. He might know some more. As Josh was a thoughtful boy, he put on his cowboy hat and tied a red hanky around his face. This was so he would not scare people in the street. When he reached the bank, a robbery was going on. People had their hands up and a hold-up man was waving a gun at Dad. But Josh was so worried about his face, he noticed nothing. And George has decided to go and practice his own faces in the mirror. Josh marched up to the counter, pulled off his hat and hanky and said, "Look, Dad!" The hold-up man saw him first. He had a stocking over his head. But even through the stocking, Josh could see his face turn snow white. He made a funny noise and dropped his gun. Quick as light, Dad grabbed the gun and bopped him with it. Just as he did, the wind changed. Josh looked like an ordinary boy again. Dad and Josh were both heroes. They had stopped a robbery and saved the bank hundreds of thousands of dollars. That night, Dad was on the news program on TV. He explained what had happened. He said that Josh had decided he would never make awful faces again. "Funny thing," said Dad. "When I was a boy, I was very good at making faces. This was my best one. Just look at this." Just then, the wind changed.